What's up, Jeff?
What's up?
This is Jeff Coffin, a remarkably prolific guy. Jeff's accomplishments would be impossible to enumerate in this video. He's first and foremost a brilliant saxophonist and woodwind specialist, and his main gig has been as a member of the Dave Matthews Band since 2008. However, he is also a teacher working at Vanderbilt's Blair School of Music, an author, having just released a children's book called The Rabbit, the Carrot, the Crow, and the Quarry, and now an app developer. More on his new app called Connecting the Dots later. He's a producer, composer, engineer, band leader, great cook, generous friend, and probably a million other things that I don't know about. So recently I was in Nashville on tour, and Jeff luckily happened to be in town, which is kind of a rarity because he spends a lot of his life on the road. Since I'm relatively new to the life of an itinerant musician and Jeff's a seasoned pro, I wanted to ask him questions about how he handles being a touring saxophonist in one of the biggest bands in the whole world. When I was in high school, you played with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones at the Chicago Theater. When I guess it would have been like 2004, 5, something like that. Maybe even a little later than that. I don't think I'd ever seen somebody play flute, clarinet, a bunch of different saxophones, and blow on all of them and have a personal sound on all of them.
Oh, thank you.
And that really inspired me. And you know, my channel, I talk a lot about woodwind doubling because that's sort of become my, my career.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And you do it very well.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
man. So you're a legend to me in that sense.
Thanks, man. That's cool. It's interesting because I learned so much playing with Bela. I played with them for 14 years, and I had to learn so much stuff. I mean, I already knew a lot of stuff, but I had to learn so much more to play with that ensemble.
So in this video, Jeff is going to share exactly what he's learned in his long and illustrious career of touring. This is Score Study with me, briankrock.
1. Create a warm-up routine.
That's rolling. Actually, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about was just how you maintain all your, because you travel with.
I travel with all 4 of the saxes: soprano, alto, tenor, bari, flute, alto flute, and penny whistle.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like, how do you...
4 hours a day on penny whistle.
Yeah, of course. If you miss one day too.
I know, right? The chopsticks, they fall off. It's done.
So do you have like a routine when you show up at a given venue? Do you...
Sort of, yeah. So we have a horn room for me and Rashawn. And so all my stuff ends up in there. I carry tenor and soprano on the bus. Baritone, alto, flute, and alto flute usually go in a case. They get brought there. So we lay everything out. And I spend time on every horn. Not an exorbitant amount.
Yeah.
But making sure that everything is cool, getting reeds together, making sure I've got a few different reeds. And then usually I'll practice for a while, just using iReal Pro or whatever. And play through some tunes, usually doing them in multiple keys.
Yeah.
I've been working on Countdown on flute slowly, and which has been really fun. I'll do some various patterns, different arpeggiations, different inversions of arpeggiations, just to kind of warm up all areas of the horn, but also to warm the vessel up also.
Right.
And to kind of get in that headspace. So it's usually, I usually spend a couple hours anyways in there. Then about an hour before the gig, I kind of get in what I call gig mode, and I start kind of getting ready, and it's kind of a solitary thing. But I mean, we're all hanging out in the dressing room before the gig, and I make juice before the gig for everybody.
That's
and,
cool.
And that's kind of my zen before the hit. But yeah, I mean, gig days are like very focused from basically the time we leave the hotel or arrive until the gig is over. That's my focus, So it's a long day. I mean, it's a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
2. Have backup gear.
What do you do on the road, by the way, do you work on your own horns if something is...
I have doubles of everything.
Oh, okay.
I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because something could go down in the middle of a show, What do you do?
Yeah.
Give me another horn, quick.
Yeah.
You know.
Jeez, wow. Interesting.
And it's happened before, not often, but it's happened.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got doubles of everything, extra mouthpieces, the whole deal. You know.
Yeah. And they're obviously they're the same models, or
Pretty much. Yeah. They're all Yamahas.
switching in a
Yeah, it'd be a little tough, but I mean, switching horns is hard enough, as you well know. But it's fine now. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah. With reeds, how many reeds do you said you always make sure you have a few. Mm-hmm. And I guess those are sitting somewhere on a stand on stage if you need to change, or if you...
I always have a couple out there if something goes awry. So I've been using Boston Sax Shop reeds for quite a while now.
Yeah.
They're fantastic,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I mean, there's a box of them right behind you.
And they did seem to last very long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I go through, like, since July, I've probably, and we're playing 3 hours a night. On tenor, I've probably gone through 6, maybe 8 reeds.
Well,
Yeah.
since July.
Yeah.
And how many shows is that?
Oh, no, 40.
So
Somewhat. Plus practice time, plus practice in the hotels, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But here's the thing, man. Like, I work on them a little bit if I need to. I balance them out side to side.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Joe Allard thing where you kind of turn your head and it stops off one side of the reed, turn your head, it stops off the other.
I kind of do that too. And then you like this one, I guess the left side sounds a little hard, and you could just, work a little off there.
Yeah, so I do this thing where it like you get a piece of glass and a small hand sander and 400 grade sandpaper, and you go like in a crescent shape, against the grain of the reed, just a little bit, and it balances the reed out. And I have no issues with reeds, but here's the thing, man, they last forever once you balance them. Yeah. Because it's all vibrating uniformly.
Do you have the problem that I have, which is when you find a reed that you really love?
You don't want to play it?
No, exactly. You think, I'll just play on it for 5 minutes today.
Right.
But I don't want to ruin it.
Right.
And then you never
you never get to it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's get a shot of this painting over here.
3.
Oof.
Play the room.
I can't believe you took that photo, man. But you hear all these stories about, the sort of classic clarinet players who, before we had amplification, playing in orchestras, who could just throw their sound to the back of a hall,
Right. Yeah, there's something about that. And I think it's an intention also, because I talk to students about this all the time, especially like when they're playing in a big band. I was just talking to, there's a trumpet soloist at Vanderbilt where I teach. She had this nice feature in a tune, but she was, it wasn't like she was playing meekly. But I told her, I said, you're projecting to about here. And I would like put my hand behind the saxophone section. Mm-hmm. I said, what if you projected like all the way out to the end of the room, Mm-hmm. Like think about playing through those doors, and immediately her sound just changed. And I think that it's a perception thing. It's an intentional thing. That's why all those cats in New Orleans sound so amazing, because they're playing outdoors. Now saxophone sounds in New Orleans sometimes sound a bit spread to me, because they're playing outside, and it's hard to fill up outside with the reed instruments.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. You sort of adjust to your environment.
That's exactly right. You adjust to the environment.
Yeah.
You got to play the room. So anyways,
4.
It's in 3 sections.
Always be learning.
There's an introduction that talks about...
I think one thing that, is very obvious to me is how much you care about your students and how much your teaching gig at Vanderbilt, you seem to orient your life around it these days. And
especially when I'm home and when I'm on the road, because I have to teach when I'm on the road also. My lessons are geared more towards the individual than anything else, But the first thing that I have them do for the lesson is write out 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses. And so the reason for that is that I want them to have some responsibility and accountability for recognizing what they do well and what they don't do well. So it's this evaluation process that is really important. And the reason for that, so all the Vanderbilt kids are like brilliant, like they're off the charts smart.
Yeah.
So I throw them a little curveball. I'm like, how many hours in a week? None of them have been able to answer me yet, by the way. They're like, what? Like, how many hours are in a week? They're like, I don't know, 24 is that. I don't know. And so there's 168 hours in a week. So I tell them, I say, look, if you're studying with me for an hour a week, you're on your own for 167 hours. Who's really doing the teaching here? It's not me. You know, I can guide them, but my goal is to teach them how to teach themselves.
Right. The app that you just made, which
Sure.
seems to be culled from what you've learned from teaching over the years.
Yeah, it's called Connecting the Dots. This app kind of teaches us how to learn about improvisation the same way we learn how to read or write, which is by taking little small fragments at a time and learning how to put them together, understanding the relationship of these things. And these voice leading grids are really cool also. So it shows you how to move up or down from a single note, starting on just the root, starting on the third, without it being a common tone,
Right.
starting on the fifth and starting on the seventh. Then when you get into two chords, the voice leading of going from one note up or down to the next note of the next chord. And so it starts to kind of show like an architecture, like a geometry to what's going on. And then the exercises get into using just one note per bar with 6 different exercises of different rhythms, starting on just the root, then starting just on the third, same rhythms, fifth and seventh.
Yeah.
Then go to 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, all 12 keys. It's a call and response where I'm playing all the exercises also. And it does it with 2 chords and then the blues, kind of the same idea. But it's all based around arpeggios to understand the bones of the chord, to understand the skeletal structure of the chord. And when you understand that in its various arpeggios, you're free all up and down the horn. If you add then like a half step below, like if you've got a C7, right? If you had a half step below each of those, then you suddenly have 8 out of the 12 notes that are available to you. All right, so over a C7 chord, now you have 8 notes to play. At 120 beats a minute, you only got 2 seconds.
Right. Exactly.
If there's one chord in that bar, right? So more than 8 notes is probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Right.
You know? And but if it does, you can kind of work around that also. Start putting in chromaticism between those notes. Next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire, you know? And you're starting to improvise in a way that is really connecting these chords together, connecting the dots, connecting the notes. So this integrates with iReal Pro also.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's awesome, man. It's really, really great. I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
Well, anyways, Jeff, thank you so much, man, for your time. And
Yeah, you're welcome.
For you're the most natural caretaker that I think I've ever.
Oh, thanks,
had.
man.
So every time I come to Nashville, I'm so stoked to see you.
Yeah, you too, brother. You too.
All right.
You too. All right.
See ya. Yeah.